MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey! All right, big day today on the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF podcast. What's up, everybody? If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate that very much.
Fight on for USC. Fight on for victory.
Did you Google that? That was
No,
pretty good.
God, I mean, I've been following the program for a couple decades now.
We tweeted last week that posted on social that Lincoln Riley was joining us, which is what this is. And I got some Fresno State people in my timeline very upset. So,
well, tell Jeff we got an open invite to old Jeff, Jeffrey Tedford.
Yeah. We've had Hainer on. Let's get Jeff on. I like that idea. If you listen to this podcast, get in the mailbag. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. That helps up the pod, and it helps us make content as well with the mailbag. So thank you for your participation in that.
Yep. Very, very, very exciting. Share this podcast, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. I don't know, just, one of the bigger, I would say when you just say Lincoln Riley, would you put him top 10 football coaches, college pro in the country right now?
I think he's viewed as one of the smartest coaches for sure.
I'm talking from just a name recognition standpoint.
Top 10. Yeah. I agree with that. Without even thinking through the list, I agree. I mean,
obviously, I would say he vaulted it with this move, right?
He's been one of the biggest sports stories of 2022, really, of this year.
He's been rumored, and he's shot it down every time. To be a Cowboys head coach for like 3 straight years, right? I remember one time Stephen Jones' kid was like on a recruiting visit to Oklahoma, and they're like, "This is it. This is inside job." I was like, "No, the guy's just 17. He just wants to check out Oklahoma." What's Lincoln supposed to say? "No, Stephen, you're not allowed to bring your son in my program."
We're very excited to have Lincoln Riley on the show today.
We are. Big deal, guy. Big deal.
We caught up with him before he had to bounce to go run a football camp, and I got some perspective on his team, on him, on Caleb Williams, on Jordan Addison. It's a critical year for West Coast football, which we rep, so we need SC. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling pretty good about the Trojans.
We need him, guy. We're in desperate need. Kyle Whittingham's done everything he can do. He's been like a Justin Thomas, Rory. He's given it all.
Yep.
Mario had a decent run, then he said, "I'm out." We'll see what Dan Lanning's got. We know for a fact this guy can coach. That's the thing, right? This guy it was like when Washington got Chris Peterson. Like, the evidence is clear. This guy, he's a head coach. There's no, he's been the best coordinator in college football forever. Like, this is the real deal at a program that kind of matters, right?
Oklahoma or USC?
Both, but Oklahoma's been sweet. Like, USC needs them. Needs them bad.
All right, well, let's get to it. Anything else before we get to Lincoln Riley?
Have a great day.
All right, everybody, here we go. We appreciate you watching. Here is our conversation with Lincoln Riley. John, it is great to have Lincoln Riley with us on the show now. As we're looking at him, sun coming through the window. Lincoln, we were just talking. We were scrolling your Twitter feed. It's nothing but I got beach, I got sunset, I got golden hour sunset over the Coliseum. I got sunset with Matt Leinart. I got fireworks. I got classic Cadillac beach. Looks like another sunny day, maybe in your backyard. I know social media isn't everything, but life looks pretty good.
Just another weekend in Southern California. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool that experiences for all of us here. It's been fun. It's been fun for this to be the new norm.
Does it get old waking up to the Pacific Ocean yet?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for that day. I don't think that day's coming. So now it's still a dream to be out here.
I'd imagine for the traffic, the coaching hours, you might somewhat able to avoid it a little bit, but I'm sure every once in a while you run into that bad boy on the 405, right?
Not bad. We're mostly on the 110, and the fast pass is a lifesaver. Okay. So yeah, it's not bad. We don't deal with traffic much. So yeah, we zoom in and zoom out.
We just saw a few of the clips this week have been around from Father's Day at Not Staples, Crypto.com arena. That looked like a pretty cool event. Was that just recruits' dads? Was that players on your roster's dads? What was that event?
Yeah, we had a recruiting event there Sunday morning, Father's Day morning. So we were obviously the Bus family has some great connections to our university, and they were kind enough to let us host an event there. So pretty cool to be able to go a mile and a half from our campus and be in one of the most iconic sports venues that there is. So we had a really cool time. Pretty good way to celebrate Father's Day.
Yeah, it doesn't suck. It seems like a lot's been made over the years of the Pac-12 losing a lot of guys from California, specifically from the fruitful area of Southern California. I would imagine you're finding, I know you haven't been at USC too long and just had one recruiting class, but you've been recruiting the West Coast for a while as a head coach. Have you seen the benefits so far, or the potential benefits moving forward of having the small radius of guys basically everywhere in your backyard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just there's so many advantages. I mean, one, the majority of these guys all grew up watching USC and all grew up USC fans and wanting to, kind of dreaming of someday getting a chance to be a part of this program. So I think you have kind of the sentimental side, the connection side to all the people here. Obviously the availability, the opportunity to get guys on campus often, how easy it is for our staff to get out and see these guys during the recruiting periods. I mean, it's just it's a huge advantage, and but it's one that we have to do a great job with. We've got to, we know what we have here. Most people either know or are learning kind of what we have here, but we've got to go do a great job with it, because I think when you do that, USC becomes very, very tough to say no to, especially for those kids in the state of California.
I remember, and John and I have talked about this, Coach, being struck a few years ago. I interviewed a linebacker from Washington State who played for Mike Leach named Jihad Woods, who's from Helix High School, where Reggie went to high school. And I was blown away. This is like, 2019. And these guys still think of Reggie Bush the way that, they weren't 10 years old when Reggie Bush was playing at USC. They don't remember those games. You were just out of college. For a lot of us, like, that was college football prime. What does Reggie, these high school kids that you talk to who, this is 2022, like they were born, but does Reggie resonate with them still in a way that most guys wouldn't?
I think Reggie does. I think the combination of obviously the kind of player that Reggie was, but then also doing it in this setting, I think absolutely still resonates with people. We had fortunate enough to have several of our greats back this weekend, and you can just see the power of these guys. And these guys would have done well a lot of places, but the combination of them and this university, this city, this football program really put it over the top and took these guys from just becoming great players to really being kind of iconic names in our sport. And it absolutely still resonates. And so I think that's why there's a lot of excitement right now is, people want to have that feeling again.
Well, one thing is Reggie and Matt, obviously they're legends of your program, but they now have a platform on television. And when you got the job, and specifically Matt, I know Guy mentioned the picture he took, and he's been around a lot. He still lives in Southern California. It has to mean a lot for you how outspoken he's been specifically and the support he's shown you in this transition coming to USC.
100%. Matt's been incredibly supportive really the whole way through. We got to know each other once he got into the media, and he came down a couple of times to interview us before games, and it was fun getting to know him then. And you can tell how passionate he is about this place, and so many others. I mean, the Ronnie Lotts, the Marcus Allens, the Anthony Munozes, Lindell Whites. On down the line, so many. Sean Cody's. Just the list goes on and on and on and on. And all of these guys have been so supportive, and honestly, probably more than I even could have imagined. And I just think it shows you, one, how much they care about this place, how much this place was a part of their success, and how invested they are in kind of the resurgence of it. And so, just be able to meet those guys, spend time with them, talk with them about their experiences, and I think them be so optimistic about what we're doing right now has absolutely been a great thing.
Where were you? Do you remember watching the 2006 Rose Bowl, January 4th? You guys at Texas Tech had just played Alabama, I think, a couple days before. Maybe the college football game, but greatest of all time. You had played Texas that year, obviously. Do you remember watching that game? Where were you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember watching it at home, and I remember thinking it was one of the greatest football games I'd ever seen. And again, it's not just the game and the two teams, but it's the setting, and it's the it just everything about it lined up to be really, really iconic, and game lived up to it. And those are the type of games that USC should be in my opinion.
Keith Jackson's last game too.
Even better. But
What a way to
greatest
go
of all
out.
time, man. Yeah.
One thing I remember when I was scouting and I first went to Heritage Hall, and you walk in and those Heisman trophies are there. And I just remember thinking it was a really powerful, that feeling of walking in there, and the building, I think where you're sitting now, had just gotten built. But is that, you come from a place that's obviously has similar backgrounds, a powerful place, the recruiting advantage and just the power for parents and just you as a football guy at heart. Like, I mean, you've led a pretty good football life. I mean, Oklahoma, now USC. I know it hasn't really started yet, but sometimes you got to you're a year older than us. Got to pitch yourself every once in a while. Like, this is pretty special.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think at 38 would have had a chance to work at some of the places I have, be around some of the people that I have has been remarkable. And then, yeah, like you said, getting the chance to work at two of the best college football programs of all time. Oklahoma was fabulous, has been fabulous, will always be fabulous, will continue to be fabulous. It's a tremendous place, and was very, very fortunate to get the opportunity I had and to have the time that we did there. And then, yeah, obviously feel incredibly fortunate to get this chance here at USC. I just think it's such a unique time in the sports history, and specifically a very unique time and unique opportunity that exists here. And I feel like we've got everything that we need to make that happen and make the climb that we all believe we can. So it's you kind of get in the middle of this day to day, and you're grinding and you're focused on the next day and the next task, and they just kind of keep coming. But now you do at times when you get a chance to sit back. It's cool to think about the great opportunities that we've all been able to have.
John's had a line for years that I thought was good. And when we talk about like NFL free agency, that football, it's not often plug and play. But acclimating quarterbacks really quickly has been one of the things that you've done that's made your programs elite. From Baker, the Heisman, Kyler, and then Jalen Hurts finished. I mean, almost 3 straight Heismans, right? And obviously this year you are melding a lot with 20 transfer portal guys, plus some really talented freshmen coming in. So I know you've been asked a lot, like how quickly can it come together? I think the question is, from your perspective right now in late June, like what are the things right now that stand in the way of having it be the full big picture that you want it to be this year? Do you feel like, I mean, your offensive line, I think seems like it's pretty set. I mean, going into the fall, I know there's still a lot to be decided, but it seems like you've plugged a lot of the spots that you'd want to plug in a variety of ways. So do you see anything at this point in time that stands in the way of you having it hit the ground running?
Oh, there's a lot that stands in the way. It's just going to be our willingness to push through it. It doesn't matter to me. It does matter, but even if you return all 11 starters and they're all 4th-year seniors, there's still, each year is kind of its own battle, and you got to come together. You got to play great ball at the right time. There's always going to be things that you have to overcome and to play great football. And yeah, I mean, I think the obvious ones for us are getting players acclimated to both culture, new systems, schemes, fundamentals, kind of all of that, which I think I feel excited about the direction we have. I was very pleased with the work this spring, the buy-in from the football team, and then excited about several of the newcomers that weren't here for spring that we've been able to plug into the program now. But there's just still so much work to be done. We have to have an elite summer. We have to have a tremendous training camp. When you do have as much new as we've had, the challenges of getting everybody on the same page and working through a lot of those kinks before you go play somebody else are obviously critical. So, I don't see anything standing in the way that we can't overcome, but at the same time, like we actually have to do it, right? Just talking about it or just bringing in some new coaches or new players, it doesn't get that done. It helps set you up and give you opportunities, but then it'll be up to us to capitalize on those.
We'd spent so much time, and I'm sure you have been asked so much about the players and the transfers, but how about you specifically as a coordinator? You spent all this time at Oklahoma. You know all the defensive coordinators in the Big 12, and you just get to know a lot of the personnel on those individual teams, especially on defense. You're always going to have a couple, uncommon opponents non-conference wise. But now you have this new conference where you have to learn all these new coordinators and all these new players. How much time have you spent, and how much? I mean, is your summer break going to be as normal because you feel a little like there's catch-up mode for you as the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, it'll be a little bit less than normal, which I think year one's that's pretty. I think that's pretty standard. You're right. There is going to be a lot of new. Some guys that I haven't coached against before, like you said, players that haven't seen before, haven't been on the field before, evaluated before. So. Luckily we have a really, really good staff, a lot of guys that I can lean on. That was, I know one of the big things here was trying to have a staff that had a good amount of guys that see the big picture and can help you with, kind of help in that, whether it's devising game plans or understanding how we want to attack people or studying opponents. And so, but yeah, no, there's definitely going to be some new, which will be fun. And I think it's, I think there's some really good coaches in this league, some really good defensive coaches and players, and there's going to be some fun challenges. But yeah, I think even through the years and for how many years we were in the Big 12, I always look forward to at times the team getting a new defensive coordinator, or you go play somebody out of the conference, or in a bowl game or a championship game that's a little bit different. And I think those challenges are fun, and so. We'll embrace it, dive into it, and be ready to go.
That said, though, John, talk about players. I watched the spring game. Mario Williams was great. Then you add Jordan Addison since then. What excites you the most about having Jordan Addison on your team?
Oh, well, I mean, there's obviously some proven production with him. He had a tremendous last year at Pitt. He's a very good football player, and I love the versatility he brings. Did a lot of really good things last year, from catching the ball underneath and maximizing yards after the catch to also being a deep threat down the field. And probably my favorite thing about him is he wants to get better. He wants to learn. He wants to grow. When he decided to make a move, and you sat down and talked to him about why would you do this, that was the number one thing, is I want to keep, kind of developing and expanding my game. And he felt like this was going to be a good situation to be able to do that. So, it's always good to have proven players and guys that are talented players, but when they're hungry to get better, even if they've had some real success already, that's a great thing. And so we're going to push him to get better and get him acclimated, and, would fully expect that he would be an explosive playmaker for this team.
How about, Guy and I watch Caleb Williams, but I think there's a decent amount of people out on the West Coast that might not have a great feel for him, maybe beside that Texas game where he was incredible. Just a little scouting report on your quarterback.
Yeah, no, he's a very talented player. One of the guys that's can certainly beat you a lot of different ways, and we're trying to kind of add to that right now as we continue to build up his skill set and develop him. But he's a very talented thrower, has the arm strength to make a lot of throws, but the arm creativity to be able to change arm angles and throw on the run. And I think has really developed in the last year or so as a thrower, and I think is got a chance to be really, really good in that department. He's an athletic kid that can run away from people. Had a lot of big runs in his freshman season, 40, 50 plus yard runs. So he can really hurt people with his legs, and he's also got a little bit of thickness to him too. So there's some real durability there. So, skill set wise and talent wise, he has a lot of the things that you would want, and he's developing quickly. So I certainly believe his best ball's ahead.
Well, when's the last time you've had a quarterback that was taller than you?
That's actually a good question. Jalen's close. Jalen and I probably got Jalen by a hair. So it's been a long time, actually. Probably Dominique Davis at ECU, my first 2 years as an OC. So it's been a long time.
Well, we know you got to get the camp. You got to get you off the camp, but we appreciate it. It's always it's great to see you. We're rooting for you, and we appreciate you jumping on with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lincoln.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck. See you.
All right, fellas. Thank you, guys.
Take it easy.
I think you're onto something there, John. I wish we'd gotten to short quarterbacks earlier in the interview with Lincoln. We'll have to come back.
I don't know if it
Carson Palmer. No. Leinart too tall.
Leinert's sneaky enormous. You ever been by him? He's big.
I have. I've seen him in person.
What do you think he is? Like 6'4"?
Yeah, I think
Ish?
Carson's bigger, but Carson's humongous.
Carson is a mammoth human being. Mammoth human being. If you told me who's bigger, the Mannings or Carson, I might take Carson by a half inch.
Well, Peyton would only be Peyton's bigger than Eli, right? Carson's probably bigger than Eli.
I think they're all. I would take
humongous.
Carson over both of them. Eli's
Yeah.
sneaky bigger than you think. Would it be as funny if two of those guys hadn't been number one overall picks and the other guy basically got Wally Pipp, Carson Wentz, and became a full-time starter for a playoff team? Like it's funny because these guys are all millionaires and starters. Well, I guess Baker's not.
Wait, Carson Wentz, Carson Palmer.
Well, I'm saying that Jalen Hurts kind of Wally Pipp Carson Wentz and got him out of town.
It did work out for him. Kind of.
Which one?
Wentz.
Yeah, financially, it's worked out fine.
He's still a start. He's getting a starting. He's a starting quarterback again in the NFL.
He just had to be starter in multiple places where Jalen just gets to be a Philadelphia guy.
Yeah, but for how long?
Well, I mean, big year coming up.
Pretty crazy, right? When you think about
Lincoln gets
Russell
credit for that
Wilson
because
was the exception, right?
Yeah.
Was there anybody between Russell and Baker really that became that big of a talking point before Baker went number one?
No.
And then Kyler the next year?
And really leading up to Russell Wilson, the guy hadn't existed, right? Michael Vick, I don't count him because he was like one of the greatest athletes in the history of athletics, right? Because he's short.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
But him and Russell, I mean, Michael Vick was an all-time outlier. And that's 2001.
He came before Russell. Yeah.
Yeah, way before Russell. Flutie Flakes.
Flutie Flakes. But it made Baker polarizing as he went number one and won the Heisman. Kyler won the Heisman. Hurts. I mean, Burrow had, the greatest quarterback season of all time, won the Heisman, but Hurts was second that year in the Heisman. Not that it was particularly close.
Irony is Baker. Well, I guess Baker was the least heralded, right? Transfer from Tech. Kyler was an enormous recruit at A&M who left. I mean, that was a big deal for them to get him. Backed up Baker. And even Jalen is probably the least heralded of the guys, obviously in college. Did start at Alabama for Nick Saban, It's like, where'd they get Jalen from? I don't know. Alabama, multi-year starter.
Yeah.
Like, there haven't been that many guys, I bet, if you look over Saban's run that had multiple years starting. Because there were a lot of, like, one-and-dones after McElroy. Tua was, like, a year and a half. Mac wasn't really that long, right?
Yep.
I guess
Mac started for a year
Bryce
and
is
a
going to
half,
end up
basically.
Bryce is going to end up being multiple years.
Bryce will be a 3-year starter. Yeah.
2. Because he backed up Mac
he backed up Mac last year and then this year, and then he comes out of this year. Yeah, 2-year starter. You're right. God, feels like he's been there for 3 years just because, I don't know, big time name. And also not tall.
No.
Some of these guys now are not. Like the guy Lincoln has coming in next year, Malachi Nelson, who is the number 2.
His rivals.
Number 2 quarterback in the class behind Arch Manning. He's 6'3". I mean, he's tall. He was the Oklahoma commit who then flipped to USC. But who knows? I mean, John, it's June, more than a year before these guys. I guess he'll probably show up in January. I don't know that, but a lot of these.
We didn't ask him about him. He wouldn't be allowed to talk about him, but it doesn't feel like Lincoln and Arch. Feels like Arch is kind of down to the 3 or 4 SEC schools: LSU, Georgia, Alabama.
Yeah.
Even though I think
he just won on his Alabama. I know it would be. He'd be.
The guy he's getting is not bad.
So obvious. I mean, it's hard not to love Lincoln Riley to USC. You've interviewed him before. I've interviewed him a couple of times. We know a guy that worked for him at Oklahoma. Well, so we've been trying to get Lincoln on. Full disclosure, we've been trying to get Lincoln on this show since going back to before last year at Oklahoma, and had made a little headway at Oklahoma, and then things got a little crazy, and obviously, so we're thankful that we're able to get him here now as the coach of USC. But I mean, he's been one of the biggest stories of 2022. Just thinking about some of the stuff he said, and it's not just what he said, but who he is as a guy. I think you and I have talked about this a lot. what coaches are fits where. And I think when programs are big time programs like USC is, there's sometimes a segment of people that want to hire a guy who is a big personality. And I think that can mean different things, because I think Lincoln clearly commands the room that he's in, and he is not against being quote unquote promotional, right? Like he says things like the quote that went viral the other day from the Father's Day brunch at crypto.com arena. What would he say? Like, get on the rocket or watch us fly by, basically.
Yeah.
Like he's just not a lot of bullshit. But if he believes in what he's doing, which he believes in what he's doing, he'll say that. I think he's a very good mix of believing in what he's doing, saying it, like adapting to what is the current landscape, where you have to be willing to, recruit against guys who are going to say a lot of stuff, but also, never feeling like he's full of shit. I think he's got a really good demeanor for USC, because there are a lot of things that can create distractions for that program, and he's not a distracted guy.
I think the strength of a college football conference, and obviously the Pac-12 over the last decade, has just clearly fallen behind in terms of their results. Not even debatable. And I think a big reason the SEC, obviously their strength was Nick Saban, but he then produced Kirby Smart. They added Jimbo Fisher. Lane Kiffin has now been added. Ed Ogeron, say what you want about him, did win a national championship. They had Dan Mullen, who, while he got fired from Florida, had Mississippi State really good for a while. Hugh Freeze. You're only as strong as your coaches. And you need your best program typically to have your best coach. And when we were in college, it was Pete Carroll and USC. But the strength of the conference was really Jeff Tedford was also at Cal, right? Bellotti and Chip Kelly were at Oregon. Jim Harbaugh came into Stanford. They went 4-5 deep. And I think the pressure on Lincoln to lead the charge now, Kyle's done all he can do. I mean, Whittingham consistently wins at Utah, has made them a top 15 level program. They went toe-to-toe with Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. I mean, even in a loss, I'd argue that was their greatest moment in the history of the program.
They're going to go into Gainesville this year as a top 6 team, probably week 1.
And we know, and you know him, like he's retiring at Utah. So like he's given everything he has. He's been there, feels like his entire adult life. But Lincoln, so it's like he's done all he can. The rest of the conference, they've lost Chris Peterson, right? And that was a big loss. And Washington now is on its second coach since. Oregon, they have tried since like the Chip Kelly transition to the league. Helfrich wasn't the guy. The Taggart thing was kind of a disaster. He left because he's a Southern guy. Mario, you couldn't have asked much more from Mario. You would have liked probably a little bit in-game coach, but the relevancy and how passionate he was for the program, to me, that was fine. But he left, and now they're replacing him with a guy, which I will say this. If Lincoln wins and has success, which it feels inevitable, the only place he's leaving for is like the Rams or the Dallas Cowboys. Like he turned down LSU from Oklahoma. So it's like he's at USC to attempt to win national championships, and if that won't work out, he'll be in the pros. So this is a destination job for him, like Kyle Whittingham. To me, landing like Oregon might just churn the wheel. Who knows? But the pressure on Lincoln Riley guy, I don't think it's really arguable for the conference, and football pays the bills is immense. Now, this is where I think you feel good about it. He's used to immense pressure. The guy coached at fucking Oklahoma, where I would say this year, it felt like underwhelming and they won 10 games, right? So it's just, he ended up not coaching the bowl game because Stoops took over when he left. But like that was a letdown. So whenever you're part of that, like I think he knows standards of Heisman Trophy, standards of first rounders, standards of competing in the playoffs, which to me, USC just get to the playoffs. I actually think he'll have a better chance recruiting wise to make hay in the playoffs because he can get defensive linemen at USC and defensive players, if he recruits the right ones, that he probably could not have got at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I think that what you're talking about, that pressure had to be part of the attraction of the job for him. Like at Oklahoma, he reached great heights, right? Went to the playoff, but
several times.
But he didn't, he gets a lot of credit. He didn't build it though, right? Stoops, when he took over, and that was a different kind of pressure. Take over for Bob Stoops, who just won the Sugar Bowl, went 11-2 the year before. I mean, Stoops' run before Lincoln took over, 11, 11, 8, 11, 10, 10, 12, 8. 12, 11, 11, 8, 12, 12, 12, 11, 13. Never had back-to-back single-digit winning seasons. Bob Stoops. Never.
Oklahoma football is one of the most successful programs in the history of college athletics.
So I don't see that this is any more pressure for Lincoln Riley than what he was under before. It's just different, and it's a different opportunity because he's going to get 100% of the credit right away if they win a bunch of football games, and he'll have to. Look at what he's done to the roster. 20 transfer portal guys. This goes back to he folded Baker into the mix. He folded Kyler into the mix. He folded Jalen into the mix. Now, this is also bigger. Like, this is about defense. But I'm serious. I think he's got 6 starting offensive linemen for 5 spots right now, guys who have played. I don't think it's going to be one of the great offensive lines in SC history, but it's Mac. I was talking to Max Brown a few months ago. He said it's more than sufficient to be a good college football program.
I think Max Brown does a pretty good job whenever I see some of his stuff.
Yeah,
I
Max
think
is good.
knows.
I did a couple spring games with him. Sharp guy. I think their defense is it's going to come down to their defense. And they've flipped that. They've got transfer from Auburn, defensive end, Romello Height, Shane Lee, linebacker, transfer from Alabama, transfer corner from Oklahoma, transfer corner, Mekhi Blackman from Colorado, Eric Gentry, linebacker, who was a freshman All-American last year at ASU. So part of this is like, okay, coaches, can they coach this thing fast enough to be ready to roll year one?
It's a little different because Mario played at Miami, but it's similar. And obviously Lincoln is a Texas guy, went to Texas Tech, but it's similar in the fact that there are certain programs, and I think Oregon battled this a little bit, like with Willie Taggart and Helfrich, and then I think Mario embraced it and all the former players loved him. It is important to me at the big boy programs where your former players are really, really famous to have early on, I don't care what your resume is, to have their support. And you could argue, even if it wasn't Lincoln Riley, it could have been Brian. It could have been just another successful coach. They would have got the support given where they were coming from. But I would say it feels over the top with Liner, with Reggie, with Carson, with just some of their famous guys having Lincoln in the mix. And that matters, man. And a program that's just fallen on rough times, but is so important, not just to our landscape out here in West Coast football, but let's face it, I think if USC can be good to go along with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, and the Michigans, Oklahoma and Texas. Obviously, Texas kind of sucks, but I talked to a buddy in the league that's like, they're going to be a lot better. They've got a lot of transfers too. Like, it's going to be hard for them to continue to suck. It's just good for college football.
Yeah.
And so to me, the support he has, and I know it's hard to quantify that. I do think it has really mattered for just the positivity around the brand.
I think you have to be kind of inept to not be able, if you're a new coach, to reach out to the alums and get some of them on your side. Like, we see it all the time where alums are like, we want our guy. And then within 3 weeks, as long as the new guy that got hired just reaches out to him and tells them he wants them and they're welcome to practice. Like, we were mad at first, but we're on board with Jed Fish. Like, it just...
Hey, guys, I got you tailgate. I got 7 kegs out there, and all you guys get sideline passes.
Everyone gets sideline passes. That's all you nailed it. Sideline passes is all you need. But what's different about Lincoln wouldn't have had to pick up the phone once, and they'd be like, we just got Lincoln Riley.
Well, isn't that what happened?
People like Lincoln Riley don't get hired places because they're at places where they don't leave because they're top 5 coaches. But I think what you're talking about, when your alums are, it'd be one thing if he went to a place that wasn't Southern California and all his alums were on board. But all those alums, a lot of them played high school football in Southern California. They're connected to their Southern California football programs. Maybe they have kids who play on travel teams who they have top prospects on their teams. Like, to me, it just gets you to when your alums are all in on you, it gets you to your recruiting base so fast. It opens doors for you. And again, high schools in Southern California have had open doors for Lincoln Riley. He recruited Southern California before. I think it just gets, especially when your guys are cool, when it's Matt Liner and there's some high school kid in Southern California going, yeah, I love Matt Liner. Or Reggie Bush. I love Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush, in our lives, it's Reggie Bush or Tim Tebow, the biggest deals in college football. Like, those are the two. And it's amazing to me, Reggie still has that pull for guys who did not grow up watching him, because he's cool in any era. It's hard to be cool in any era, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am pro Mad Dog when it comes to the Bob Cousy argument with JJ Redick, but it's just most guys, like MJ is just cool in any era. It's hard for a basketball player from the 60s to be cool in the 2020s, right? Reggie Bush is just, you watch his highlights, you go, I don't care what. In 2050, those highlights are still going to be obviously.
Well, I think a lot of people feel like, God, can you imagine if he played now? It'd be like watching if Steph Curry had played in the 90s. You're like, he was born to play now. You know?
True, yeah, Reggie.
I'm with you. I just think that this program, I mean, I'm on a text chain with a bunch of people at Fresno State guys that all want to go to this game. You know, USC, Fresno State, whatever was it week 3?
Week 3, yeah.
And like, I no chance half the people on the text chain would even be remotely interested if Clay Helton was the coach. You know,
right?
It's as much that Fresno might be good as much like USC matters now. Like that game matters,
dude. It's about if we win it, it'll look what it'll do for us.
Yeah,
right. And I think that's why USC being good is so important to the Pac-12. It's not just about them going to the college football playoff. Two big stars, man.
That's a big quarterback match.
Lincoln Riley and Jake Haener both put on the podcast now.
It's true.
It's not just about you going to the playoff. It's about when you play a league game. Like, think about for Clemson, none of their league games matter. Like, part of it is you don't want all your big games to be non-conference games. Like,
well, that's why Clemson. I mean, in a weird way, Clemson is rooting for Mario to be good, right?
100%. You want it to mean something when you win a game in November.
I know.
Like, when the Pac-12 went to 12, Stanford and Oregon, you remember that Stanford, Oregon for like 4 years was a ABC, big time. This is the game, right? That was it. The league went through Stanford, Oregon. Like, that was big for the league. But right now, who does the league really go through, right? Like,
would you say on paper right now there's a clear top 3?
It goes through Utah.
Would you say there's a clear top 3, Utah, USC, and Oregon on paper for this season for the Pac-12?
Yeah, and then I think right now kind of there's a 4th. UCLA is just kind of right there as a 4th.
You would put UCLA in that crew of teams talent-wise?
No, I'd put them 4th. I'd put them on a separate tier on their own.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fair to say the conference.
Those 3, I think, will be top 15 preseason.
Yeah. I mean, is it inconceivable that one of those 3 teams makes the playoff?
No, I mean, I think right now you'd have to. Utah just has all these guys back from that Rose Bowl. Utah has almost everybody. Now, they did lose a first-round linebacker, but they've got almost everybody else back from a team that went to the Rose Bowl last year.
And I mean, probably one of their better quarterbacks they've ever had, right? From a throwing perspective.
Yeah. Coordinators are back. Quarterback is back.
Coaches
rolling. They're rolling.
Yeah.
They just got to win at Florida week 1. If they win at Florida week 1, they'll be top 4 at least going into week 2.
Does Oregon and USC play this year?
No.
Does Oregon and Utah play?
Yes.
So Utah plays them both.
Utah plays them both. So that's a disadvantage for Utah. Because
but if Utah can win that week 1 Florida game, even if Florida's an 8-win team, that's an incredible win on the road.
Yep.
Did you tell me they're like a couple point underdog, or are they favored?
No. I think it's a pick 'em, or they're like a 1-point favorite. Auburn,
so it's not like they're going to be some little engine that could go into that game.
No.
But Florida has that running quarterback that didn't really play last year. Everyone got mad at Dan Mullen for not playing him. Who just, I don't think many people have seen him, but he was like an elite recruit. Like, just if the guy is sweet, could be a problem.
Billy Napier can coach.
Yeah,
pretty good. It's going to be 117, humidity. It's going to be hot.
So you would say USC's non-conference. I mean, the Fresno game is not going to be easy, but they're going to be favored in that game. They have Rice, and who's their other game?
Always Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the year, last game of the year.
Is pretty good.
Yeah, but that's the last game of the year. Like, can you get there?
Yeah.
They play Utah on the road. That'll be a sweet game.
God, there are a lot of new coaches at big programs, huh?
Around the country? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking like Marcus Freeman versus Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning.
Brian Kelly.
Like, you got these guys at these major top 15 programs all over the country. It's pretty nuts when you think about it. I guess Sark's been there a year, but I mean, just that little trio. Oregon's got a new coach. Miami's got a new coach. SC's got a new coach.
LSU's got a new coach.
Florida's got a new coach. I mean, these teams tend to play in big games, right?
Florida State's year 2, right? Is that year 2 for Norvell?
Yeah. What's his deal? It's a big year for him.
Kind of, it was weird last year. Was it
It's a
year
weird
3 or year
job.
2?
Might be year 3.
2020, 2021. Yeah, year 3.
Would you say that Lanning's landing spot was much easier than Lincoln? Like had less work to do, just inherited a roster. I remember Mario saying like the cupboards are pretty full here.
Well, they're
we got a lot of talent.
specifically. I think if you show up and your defense is legit, it's stacked, that feels like you have a better chance right away than if your offense is stacked. Would you agree with that? Like your defense is just.
And he's defensive coordinator from Georgia. Probably recruited a lot of those kids. Like if they're good on defense, you're just going to be in every game.
They have probably the best linebacker combo they've ever had in the history of the program.
Who's their quarterback?
Well, it's probably going to be Bo Nix. So, has not been prolific necessarily, but he played in major big-time SEC games.
Wasn't he the quarterback
against Oregon?
Justin Herbert's senior year?
Freshman, remember? They kept showing his dad. It was like, there's whatever his dad's name is.
So there's way worse options to have than Bo Nix, your starting quarterback year 1 with a really good defense.
And the other thing that's crazy in the Pac-12,
he can run a little too. Like he can move.
Yeah, he's athletic. He kind of looks Herbert-ish. He's not as tall, right? But he wears 10. Just kind of.
Is one of Lanning's his offensive coordinator? Did he have Auburn ties or something?
His offensive coordinator was the QB coach at Auburn Bo Nix's freshman year. So he's coaching them. That's what's crazy in the Pac-12 this year, John. You've got new quarterbacks, new coaches in spots that they've worked together. Like Cam Ward is Washington State's coach.
College football is like the NFL. Like, when a coordinator leaves, he brings that player. When a guy gets a head coaching job, he brings a couple of his guys. Like, college football is no different than the National Football League.
Eric Morris. No, you're right. But you bring like a backup with you in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, let me get a guy to help.
I'll take this guy. I'll take this guy, and these two guys.
In college, you bring your starter. Eric Morris, who's Washington State's OC, was a receiver at Texas Tech when Lincoln Riley was there. He was the head coach for Cam Ward in Division II. Now they're together at Washington State. So the quarterback and the OC were together as head coach quarterback last year somewhere else.
Where did that Hawaiian gunslinger go at Washington State?
Jaden DeLora went to Arizona. He's going to be Jed Fish's quarterback.
I remember you telling me, like, could Arizona not be terrible?
Their schedule's
They're still really young.
They're really young. I don't know how good their defense is going to be.
They did win one game last year.
Against Cal when Cal had a bunch of COVID guys out, remember?
Weren't they missing like 18 starters?
It was like their quarterback, their offensive line, and it still came down to the wire.
Wasn't the final score like 17-15 or something?
Yeah, it was not a great game. Washington is Kalen DeBoer. His quarterback, Michael Penix, maybe, was at Indiana with him.
Coming off an ACL, I think, though.
Yeah, it might be a second. I mean, he's had a couple major injuries.
Yeah, Hainer said not so fast.
Caleb and Lincoln together. And there's one other combination of guys. Washington State is 2. Oregon is 3. USC is 4. I thought there was one more. Arizona, no. Arizona State, no. Emory Jones from Florida is Arizona State's quarterback. UCLA, no. Colorado, no. So maybe it's at 4, but it's still pretty crazy.
I'd say, is it fair to say with Lincoln, it's just the most anticipated Pac-12 season? I mean, a large part is, Oregon and Utah have been big time, but now adding these guys back to the mix in a long time.
I think it's the biggest headline hire the Pac-12, the biggest hire, like at the moment of the hire that the Pac-12's ever had. Now, Pete Carroll turned out to be, I'm not saying he's bigger than
Harbaugh
Pete.
turned out to be great, but he was coming from San Diego.
I'm just saying at the moment of the hire, it's the biggest hire.
Chip Kelly was from New Hampshire, guy. You're right. Like, you'd be like, well, how are they bigger than Chip Kelly, Jim Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll? Because remember, Pete Carroll was like the fourth choice.
Hire, that's all. At the moment of the
Pete Carroll was not the first choice.
He was like 7th. He was 7th.
It was a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal. It's a very big deal. And hence the reaction from the program, right? That he left.
You think Lincoln's not worried about LA traffic when you asked him about it because someone else is driving him?
No, I do think I remember where
easy commute.
I stayed in Manhattan Beach where a lot of these guys live. And I remember when I scouted, you could take the back roads and I guess you don't have to go on the 405. Yeah, I think it's a little
110. I don't know LA highways that well.
I do think it's a little less avoidable up north where UCLA is. but I think it is. You can take the back rows again. Lincoln ain't getting to the office at 8:30, so he did look pretty casual when we talked to him.
For those of you not watching, it was like a Henley. Is that what that's called? Like the button up, no collar. He was
Yeah,
going. I was texting Katie, his SID texted me during the interview. I guess he was going to a football camp. I don't know if it was a youth camp or a high school camp or what kind of camp it was going out to, but that's what he was about to do.
Another thing is, and this happens in the NFL sometimes, but it just doesn't last long because when it's really shitty, the guy just gets fired. In college, in basketball and football, because a guy might have some equity, AD might be in flux, you just might not have the budget. You can get to this period where a coach can last longer than he probably should, and it can get so negative. The SEC, I would say, is somewhat rare. Like the moment it gets negative, they just McElwain,
Chiswick,
Ed Ogeron, Chiswick, you just get fired. Most
mid-year,
they just blow you out. In the Big Ten, you can last. Definitely in the Pac-12, it had got, I would say, pretty ugly. Just the negativity surrounding this program. Like, I mean, it had really, really gotten bad. Like,
it's one thing to fire a coach mid-season. They fired Clay Helton week 2, I think it was.
God,
it's one thing to get fired in November or get fired and then they let you finish the year like Ed. He got fired he definitely got fired in September.
Ed won his last game. Ed beat Texas A&M.
I know.
He ever coached.
Everyone hated him, but somehow they found a way.
Ed also had won a natty 2 years ago, right? I mean, Clay, it had been really, really bad. I mean, Clay's claim to fame was like his first year with Sam Darnold. And so you could argue also the bar honestly couldn't be much lower, right? For Lincoln. Not that he would care, but it's pretty low. But
it's weird, right? Because if he wins 8 games, he'd be like, yeah, but we really want to win 10.
Yeah, that's where I'm saying there is pressure on them. What would feel, I'd say 8 would be underwhelming because you're losing a couple Pac-12 games probably.
Yeah, but I think 8, if you win 8 games,
I think 9 would probably be the sweet spot.
I think people talk about 8.5, kind of the over/under, and part of it's like how does it look at 8? But I think if you said right now 9, doesn't really quite matter how it looks. It's just going to look pretty solid, and then you feel pretty good going to the next year if you can find a way to win 9 games.
What would your prediction be based on just
2, 3,
all
4,
the transfers?
I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's easy to get to 8. And then it's like, do you beat Stanford? Do you beat Utah? Do you beat UCLA? Do you beat Notre Dame? What do you do with 8? Let me rattle these off, John, for you. Just like Rice, Fresno State, Oregon State. Jonathan Smith been on the show. Could be a good game. They won there last year for the first time since 1966 or whatever.
Won there. It kicked their ass.
ASU, Washington State, Arizona, Cal, Colorado. So that's 8 if you get all those games. Now, you could argue, well, Oregon State's going to be tougher than, Stanford. That might be the game. You shouldn't give them Oregon State. You should give them Stanford week 2. I don't know. But however you want to break it down, do you beat Notre Dame? Do you beat UCLA? Do you beat Utah? Do you beat either Stanford or Oregon State or Washington State, who could be better this year?
Where is the Utah game?
In Utah.
That thing's going to be a big boy game potentially, right?
That's a big boy game. I would imagine it'll be major, probably under the lights.
That place is going to be ape shit.
That might be. We could look at the week 7 schedule. That could be your evening ABC game.
I would say, that's a big deal for Lincoln and USC. He might approach that thing like the Super Bowl. I'm talking
Whittingham will too. Yeah.
No, I'm talking Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
This guy, they just gave all this money. He's an offensive guy. This is my conference.
I'd heard that
everyone's ass.
Once upon a time, SC was interested in Kyle, and then we're like, nah, we're good. Kind of said no to him.
Ooh. Kyle's kind of been kicking their ass for a while, right? Kicking Oregon's ass. It is kind of his conference right now.
There's not kinda. It's his conference.
And it's
I hope David Shaw and Stanford could get it back. That would be big for the Pac-12.
Well, you did their spring game. Are they any good?
We'll see. They got some pretty talented receivers.
Emmitt Smith's kid, right? They were running back.
E.J. Smith will be their running back.
He good?
They got to be able to stop. I think so, but they couldn't stop the run last year. That was a
Well, I
problem.
remember Barry Sanders. We thought he was going to be the Barry Sanders, the next Barry Sanders, and he wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, I don't think he was as good a prospect as Emmett is, but
That's his name, Emmitt Smith Jr.
yeah.
That'd be pretty cool if they're good, like him playing. Like that'd be a big deal, right? Like social media going.
Well, he's
viral,
gonna
like,
be
Emmitt
playing.
Smith-
Oh, you think he's good? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like people, that's an easy story to get behind. Like Emmitt
100%.
Smith's kid plays at Stanford.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not exactly like Mozart's cousin. This is. I don't know where isn't Emmitt Smith the all-time leading rusher?
He is, John.
so those fucking Cowboy. I mean, shit. A picture of Tony Romo bending over in a golf course goes viral. A Cowboy can like just eat a sandwich, and it's like, oh, you see, Jay Novacek online? Just boom.
Jay Novacek online.
Well, I'm just saying it's crazy the power of the Cowboy players, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch. I just haven't watched Stanford that much the last couple of years. It's been so terrible.
Yeah, they haven't been good.
And they got a highly touted quarterback.
Yep.
I got a couple DMs from like, I'm a Kentucky alum. What are your sources telling me? Like, there's just a lot of buzz when you get put on those lists. Obviously Stroud
About
and,
Will Levis and Scangarello. Is that what you're talking
and
about?
Bryce? Yeah, but I'm just saying about the Kentucky quarterback and the Stanford quarterback. People
Tanner
are just
McKee.
very because NFL like if I'm the Lions, I'm a diehard Lions fan. I'm as interested in like those four guys as I am my own team.
Right.
Right. So like if your team is really shitty, like if you're a Giants fan, you start transitioning to Saturdays. Like who are the three guys I need to keep an eye on? And when you get put on the early list of a McShay, a Kuiper, a whoever, like you're on that top 4 or 5, like people are keeping tabs on you.
Right. Yep.
And the Stanford guy was on that list with the Kentucky list right behind Stroud and Bryce, which I do think Bryce, once you watch Georgia's entire program get drafted on defense, you're like, that guy's pretty good. I watched that guy go toe-to-toe with him.
Yeah.
I love college football. God,
I know. Amen, brother. All right.
Yeah, I love the NFL, but college football is something special about it. Dun, 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 dun. Remember how Lionel?
Did he say fight on in the interview? I don't think he did.
No, I don't think he did. Yeah, you know how they used to get on the ladder and grab
with the sword.
Yeah, start waving it after they kick the shit out of somebody.
All right. Tell your friends and your enemies you heard Lincoln Riley on Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. We should make bumper stickers. I heard Lincoln Riley on Ham.
Adios.
I like how his name, by the way, for those of you that weren't watching, his name on the screen was just LR. Didn't say Lincoln, just LR.
Yeah. What do you think I kept calling him Lincoln, you a coach? I mean, I don't know, is there right or wrong? Dion gets mad when you go
No,
Dion.
I think like I like a good Lincoln.
I view him
name.
as a peer, I mean, we're just in the same age
name.
group. Income bracket, a little different.
What are you up to? I'm just going on podcast, helping my peers.
Not in the same income bracket, but buddies. Not actually, I don't even know them, but
I know some people that knows them. They tell me. I don't know.
I graduated 02. They graduated 03.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody.
Later.